What up, YouTube? Before we start the video, we got a very important announcement for you.
That's right, we have our new milestone giveaway for 2,000 subscribers. That is a CGC 9.8 graded Thor #1. This cover is a Nick Klein sketch variant that is also signed by Donnie Cates.
What? Are you crazy? Yes, we are. When we hit 2,000 subs, we're giving away this bad boy. So make sure to hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and give us a like. It would be much appreciated because we want to give this away, but we only can do that when we hit 2,000 subs. Let's get to the video.
What up, comic fam? I'm Jim.
I'm Blaine.
And this is the Two Fat Guys Pull List podcast with another fresh new comic day video for you for the week of May 7th. And it's a doozy compared to last week. I know we didn't have a show last week. Things came up. It would have been pretty short anyway, outside of us talking about Free Comic Book Day. But this week, for me, is incredibly stacked.
A little light for me. So you're going to be talking for most of this episode. That's okay. But, I'll chime in. Ask me questions. Let me know what's going on. I'll have some questions for you.
There it is. There it is. Yeah, and I know you're looking for some recommendations. I know you've kind of pulled some stuff and you've rearranged your reading as of late. So maybe this might be an opportunity. I'm not saying to completely go full bore on all these books, but maybe one or two here and there, sprinkle it in, or pick up a trade. You never know.
Let's see if you can win me over on any books.
All right, challenge accepted. All right, let's kick it off with our independence with Dynamite's Captain America issue #1 from David Pepos. Planet, sorry, not Captain America. Planet. You're right, Captain Planet. I'm currently reading Pepos's Space Ghost run, which I think is ending next week, which is kind of sad because I really enjoyed it. But him being approached by Dynamite, which he was for Space Ghost, now he's picking up another kind of retro style superhero, this one in the 90s rather than in the 60s and 70s. I grew up watching Captain Planet. I don't quite remember the plot because that's how young I was, but I do remember it. I remember the Gaia and the kids and putting the rings together, and there's Captain Planet, and he's become somewhat of a meme, right? With what's that dude's name, the guy that plays War Machine? I forget his name. Anyway, the actor that plays War Machine, he did a bit for Will Ferrell's comedy YouTube channel where he played Captain America, and he was just kicking everybody's ass. So I'm hoping that Pepos kind of taps into that more, I don't want to say intense or more realistic version of Captain America, but I hope there's a nice blend between nostalgia from the cartoon and then kind of bringing this character into present day. That's what he did with Space Ghost. Space Ghost was very, corny, and just because it was back in the 60s and 70s, right? Like that's just the vibe. So he did a really good job with bringing that character into like the modern day and writing a really compelling story and a fun story. So I hope he does the same thing here with Captain Planet. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, this cover is sick. I was just looking at another cover by Jay Lee, and who I love as a cover artist and interior art. But this looks cool, and I'm kind of into this. Like, let's take childhood nostalgia and turn it into more mature themed things. And I think Captain Planet, there's a lot of meat on that bone between jokes and the fun side of it, the meme side of it, and like real, like you could go like Swamp Thing or something crazy where it like gets dark, or it gets like really intense about like ecology and things like that. So I'm interested to hear what you think about this whenever you read this first issue, because I don't know much about it at all.
Pepos is just anytime he picks or he writes a book, I have to pick it up. He's a friend of the show. He's been on the show. It'll be interesting to see where he takes this character. Obviously, with last time I talked to him, it had just been right after the election, so he was pretty in the dumps. So he didn't even know if he was going to just continue writing. That's how depressed he was. So to see him having some titles that are already coming out after all that, kind of just mess, and him kind of getting back on the horse, I think he's going to do some fun things with this character. So I'm interested to see what happens. All right, next up, we have The Moon is Following Us, issue #9 from Daniel Warren Johnson. Holy crap. This is another artist/author that if they are doing something, I am paying attention. I am picking it up no matter what it is. The last book that he wrote was about professional wrestling, and I'm, as a kid, I used to watch it. I don't really watch it now. I mean, I may put it on here and there, but I'm not involved in any of the storylines. I'm not as a fan as I was as a kid. You know, I had the action figures and all that. But that book was fantastic. It was Do a Power Bomb. That book was so good. And he's writing Transformers right now, and I love Transformers. You know, you do have to know a little bit about what's going on in the ethos of that, but still, I'm enjoying it. But The Moon is Following Us has been a amazing journey, a very heartfelt journey, and kind of it's been dark. It's been twisted. Most recently, in the past issue, we're dealing with our father character who is trying to save his daughter in this endless sleep, this endless coma, in this dream state, and in this reality that he's trying to save her in, his demons are being his nightmares are being unearthed, and it's being presumed or kind of just shown rather than being told that he's dealt with child molestation as a kid. You know, that's the theme that's kind of bubbling up with his nightmares, and it got really dark in the past two issues. And in the past issue, he would appear to have been killed. So we don't know. Yeah, we're in a very weird state right now where we have the end goal in sight. We have the daughter. She seems to be waking up, but then he ends up getting, you know, slaughtered by his nightmares. And there's some tough discussions going on in the book. And you know, before Nate jumped off the show for his hiatus, we talked about it, and I said, you know, do you think Daniel Warren Johnson is imprinting something that he's dealt with? You know, and we don't know. You know, we just don't. And maybe towards the end of the book we will find out. But if that's the case, man, that is one way to really exercise your demons through your writing in a comic book. So I'll be very interested to see where this goes, and I'm going to go ahead and say it. This is a patois for me just because it's Daniel Warren Johnson. I love the guy.
Yeah, he's so good. And while I'm not reading this book, I love anything, you know, with families, especially like as I'm listening to, you know, a lot of these comic creators grow up on podcasts. I always hear them talk about having kids and things like this, and bringing those experiences into their books, whether it be superhero stuff like Miracle Man or Mr. Miracle. And that was one, like a father book that I really enjoyed recently. And I've been thinking about things like that. And I've been wanting to go back and read Animal Man, because that's like a very like family superhero book as well. So I love to hear that. I do have a quick question for you. I wanted to know what you thought about Riley Rosmo's art, because this guy was pretty contentious. Like, people had some hard feelings about him when he was doing Harley Quinn, and he did, I think with Bendis, he did a Legion of Superheroes book at one time, and people were not digging it. And I'd love to know what do you think, and then what's the vibe in the comic sphere?
So I remember reading Harley Quinn when he was on the artwork, and I loved it. I am very much when your art is a little bit more abstract and a little flowy. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a difference between Riley Rasmus's artwork, which is very fluid and very, I would say, intentional. And then there's John Romita Jr., where I'm like, bro, time to hang it up. You know what I'm saying? Time to hang it up. It's done. It's over. And we didn't have, speaking of art, we didn't have our show last week. And there was a free comic book day that happened on Saturday, first Saturday of every May. It happens every year. And one of the books was a Spider-Man book, trying to get people to go read Spider-Man. I forget the writer. He's been on it for a minute.
Joe Kelly.
There you go. And Jeremy Romita Jr. is still on the art. And I read it and I was like, I'm not buying this book. I'm just not doing it. Even though Pepe Larraz is going to be in there every 6 issues, I'm not going to read it. Story could be fantastic.
All right. So, what do you think about Riley Rosmo? Gosh,
I think his artwork.
You're throwing Romita Jr. under the bus again.
I'm throwing him under the bus because I'm saying there's a difference between an aging comic book artist and someone who has a distinct style that I really enjoy, even though it's messy. Brutal. I can't. When I have an opportunity, I'm going to strike. So anyway, I do remember the controversy. I thought it was great. I loved the Harley Quinn run that he was on. I read it. I was in full support of it. I think our majority of our viewers on this channel loved it too. I think there were a couple people who were like, just not my thing, and they walked away, and that was fine. But him being here, this is a perfect example of when an artist has another artist that can somewhat mirror their style. And that's one thing for me that I've said on this channel multiple times is if you're going to have a certain style and then you're going to jump off the book, find an artist that has somewhat of the same style,
Yeah.
so that you can keep that same feeling and vibe of the book so we don't just feel completely thrown off. Now, there are opportunities when time change, or we're talking about something in the past, so we bring in another artist, perfectly fine with that. But when we completely drop, like, nope, we're just changing the artist because the artist needs a break. Okay, bringing in someone else that has the same style makes much more sense than just bringing in a completely new artist that changes the vibe completely of the book. And Daniel Warren Johnson has, I think, in my opinion, I think he's got about 4 or 5 different artists that are in the same vein as his, and he's done it in Transformers. He hasn't done it here because Rasmus has been the artist throughout the entirety of the book, which, hey, I am not complaining about that. I love that. So for me, I think I love it. I love his style. He's also doing the coloring on his on the book too, I believe. So I think that lends itself even more to a bigger support in that art style. Another artist that I think has an issue with that is Ryan Stegman, which we'll talk about on X-Men, where like his artwork is very thick lines, very heavy lines, and if the colorist isn't in the same vein of how they, you know what I mean, if they don't match it, his artwork doesn't work. So maybe Stegman should color his own shit.
I am seeing, not to call you out on your own show, I am seeing Mike Spicer on the top there, and I know he is a colorist. He's quite a good colorist. I love that guy, and I'm looking at the solicitor right now. So maybe Rosmo has colored himself in the past, but I think this is a great fit. I think it's good when you find, because what Rosmo does is really cartoony, exaggerated. Yeah. You mentioned the flowy, absolutely, but he does his characters they are more on the cartoony spectrum than they are the realism spectrum. And I think when you put them on, I think Robin was another book that he did as well. And Harley Quinn, when you do them on stuff like that, it's a little tricky for people who expect a more kind of grounded art style or more photorealistic art style. But I think on something like this, which I'm hearing a lot of like dreamscapes and, video game VR stuff. So then it fits a lot more. So yeah, I think that's smart. And I like him too. I like Rosmo.
I just find it interesting that, it's hard. Like you're saying, like in one instance, I'm totally in supportive of something that's more flowy and interpretive. And then I get over to Ramita and I'm like, I can't stand it. So it's a double-edged sword. But for anyone, I say this every week, that is looking for something to read and they want to just experience a trip, The Moon is Following Us. It's right there. It's got everything. Everything. All right, jumping over to DC, we're going to kick it off with Absolute Green Lantern, issue number 2 from Ewing. Issue 1 had me kind of intrigued. And that's quite literally how I felt about the book. It didn't hook me as like any of the other Absolute books. I think this is probably the weakest Absolute book out of all of them. But I'm still on it because I am so strong on the Absolute universe and I'm waiting for something to just click, right? But I don't know if you read this, but I didn't know what to expect. And then when I got it, I was like, well, I wasn't expecting that. And it didn't feel like a good, I wasn't expecting that. And I don't know if it's just because it just hasn't landed quite yet. But it's only been one issue, right? We're in the second issue. But most of the Absolute books, the first one usually kind of, it's been a good trip of like, oh, yeah, I'm in. And here I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give it some time to cook. That's the feeling for me on this book. What they're dealing with Hal and him having this black hand and seems like somewhat of a curse, and then we've got Joe, who looks like is like the proper Green Lantern. And then we've got the giant Green Lantern symbol, like flattening a city. Like there are things that are intriguing, but the pacing of issue 1 just didn't fit the vibe like all the other Absolute books. So I'm hoping that issue 2 won't have that standard issue 2 slump and really kind of pick up the narrative for Absolute.
Yeah, I leafed through issue 1 and I kind of had to draw the line at I'm drawing the line at Flash and Green Lantern, just for my own wallet's sake,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
not a quality play or anything like that. I did not read number 1, but I kind of know the gist of it. And I'll just say, like, I love Joe. I love that they're putting Joe Mullen as, like, the star here. We read Far Sector on Comic Club, and which is a great book
Mhm.
featuring her. Uh, the best thing about her is her design. Like, she has got some really sick designs, and she does some really cool things with her projections. I like how each Green Lantern kind of does their own style of projections with whether you're an architect or like an army guy, you kind of
Mm.
get different takes, or a fighter pilot, of course. And Joe is kind of like more like fashion and mech and anime inspired, and I've always kind of thought that was a really good angle for a Green Lantern.
Mhm.
This will be something I definitely go back and read just because I want to keep tabs on all the absolutes, but I'll probably pick these up in trade or on the library or something like that. And then yeah, I mean, making Hal a bad guy. Black Hand is a traditional old school bad guy in Green Lantern. I don't know if you read Blackest Night, but that was like
Yeah.
whenever I started to get into the cosmic DC side of stuff, and
Mhm.
I loved it so much. That was peak, Green Lantern. Um, but he was Parallax. He used to be a bad guy, so making
Right.
Hal a bad guy kind of again and playing with that works here. So I'll keep an eye on it for sure.
Yeah, and when we started this run, Nate absolutely despises Hal. He can't stand him as a character. So if he's being turned into a bad guy once again, I'm sure Nate is giddy right now when it comes to that aspect of the story. So we'll see how it goes. After that, we have Absolute Superman issue number 7, and it would appear that Brainiac is finally. And I haven't. I felt like it's been ages since I've read this book, but
Yeah.
it seems like Brainiac is really finally, or at least by the cover, making an appearance, like really making his presence known in this coming issue. I was not. I know the Lazarus Pits and Ra's al Ghul have been more of a. I think they made their presence known an issue ago or 2 issues ago. Again, I'm not as versed, right, with DC, so I do applaud like crossing these villains in these books, right? So like if we're getting a Ra's al Ghul here, what are we going to get in Batman? Like, are we going to get a Superman villain over there? That's intriguing. But I am ready for this book, even though I have been saying like it's felt like it's ramped up more and more every issue. It's felt better and better every issue. I think it's because we're getting to know a better backstory about Kal-El and just his family and how he escaped. And like, I love the suit aspect and it having an AI, and it's more of a character than just a costume. I'm digging the sand dust cape that can kind of just do whatever it wants to keep him protected. I'm loving all those
Mhm.
aspects. But as the story is progressing, um, I'm looking for that hook. I don't want to say hook. I don't know what it is. There's something missing in my opinion. Not to say that this isn't a good run. I think it's a really good run. And it's definitely felt better and better as it's progressed. But I'm hoping that 7 will finally just like stamp it, right? Like, here it is, right? Because all the other books have felt like they've started that. I mean, we're 2 issues into Martian Manhunter, and I feel like I've read it. I've read it for a whole arc, and I'm like, give me more, give me
Totally.
more.
Yeah, I think something the Absolute books are doing really well is they're doing they're naming their mini arcs. And the ones that are coming to my mind is the Batman one, because there was just like the zoo, and it was like that big like
Right.
page, the zoo, and I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember Wonder Woman's. But they're doing these arcs, so you're kind of compartmentalizing them into like, oh, here's the first 6 issue mini arc that's introducing and setting up this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we're here. Now we're in between with Wonder Woman, and then we're about to kick off a new thing. And I think Superman, I think Jason Aaron is playing a more longer thing where I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sort of seeing in my mind, I'm not compartmentalizing these little delineations of where things are happening. Like
Right.
there'll be a whole issue back on Krypton all of a sudden, and then we're back here, and then we're jumping around, and he's really
Mhm.
laying these table stakes out. And I think it in a really long-term way, where I'm not saying the other books aren't doing that, but I think he's having a lot of fun building this world. And something I really like about the DC universe, or one of the little corners of the DC universe I really like, is the spy stuff. I always like Checkmate, and I like
Mm.
these spy organizations, these shady, and you could even maybe even throw the League of Assassins in there as well. Into they're not spies, but they're like one of these little shadowy groups in the wings. And so with Lois Lane as a part of like a spy organization, she's kind of like a super spy kind of character.
Mm.
And then you're introducing the League of Assassins. I just think that's kind of like this really interesting world. And I was just looking at this list. I know we have Omega Men coming up as well. And Jason Aaron's just playing in this kind of like corner of DC universe, which is really kind of odd and weird,
Mm.
and like he hasn't introduced really any big villains until Brainiac. I mean,
Mhm.
or traditional Superman villains,
Right.
as far as I know, until Brainiac. We've had like Peacemakers, which is a weird, kind of addition as
Yeah.
well. And so I think this is, I mean, like Brainiac is him and Lex Luthor are kind of like the iconic, like two big villains for Superman. They're the best, like in my opinion. And I just really like this kind of space force, this AI. There's a lot to play on there, especially with our modern times of technology.
Mhm.
So I think I love this book. It's a vibes book for me because you're right. It's not super plot heavy in terms of like me actually knowing where we are in the story and what's going on, but
Mhm.
it was a slow burn. And now I'm just like, love picking this book up because again, it's setting that vibes of the corner of DC universe that I really kind of like to play in.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And by no means is this book at any threat of being dropped. But you're right. It's a different tone. And we're traveling on a different track when it comes to Absolute Superman. There's nothing wrong with that. It's totally fine. All right, jumping next to Birds of Prey, issue number 21. Holy crap. I've been on this one since issue 1 with Thompson. I've loved it. It's had multiple arcs. It's been up, it's been down. This is my silly goose time DC book. I just think it's fun. I don't look at it and go like, "Oh my god, Birds of Prey is just setting the tone for anything DC. Like if you don't want to miss what's going on in Birds of Prey. It's more like, nah, I'm just having a good time over here. And I'm not really focused on like, wait, how'd that happen? I'm just having fun. Now, do I feel betrayed by this book? 100%. Issue 20, we killed off Big Barda. I'm fucking pissed and I don't like that. But
Oh,
the way they did it makes sense. So I'm on board. Like how do you kill a new god? Well, you launch him into space and you blow him up. That's the only way I know how. Like I don't think there's any other way you could really do it outside of I don't know. So like practically, I think that's a good idea. But she's my favorite character on the team, so she better be coming back. That's all I got to say. Other than that, we've got a mystery here. We don't know who's coming after the Birds of Prey, but they're getting marked one by one. Who's going to fall in this one? Is anyone going to fall? We don't know. But I love the dynamic. I love the team because I'm not, again, it's a book that's allowing me to learn about these characters instead of like having to pick up like a Batgirl book or Canary or, like I'm just learning about them as the book goes. And that's what I like.
yeah, it's kind of the best team of the Birds of Prey. Like it's all the best lady superheroes that you want. Except for Sin. I'm like, who is Sin? I didn't even
Yeah,
know Black Canary had a sister. And I guess this is probably like it was probably one of those like continuity deep things. And
right.
and Kelly Thompson's like, let me just dig this out and expand on it. And I made it through the first arc and loved it. And honestly just dropped it because the art shifts. The
Hmm.
art shifts, and I think it was doing that really cool colorist thing that Jordi Belair was doing, where it almost was like offset printing and it looked like it was like a
Yes.
70s comic, you know?
Yep.
And I loved that. And I don't know if they're still doing that or not, but something about the look of the book just kind of threw me off. And it kind of whenever you switch like that, it gives me a little bit of a lack of confidence in
Hmm.
that DC even has confidence in it. And that's a shame because that's on me. That's not the book. That was just like,
Yeah.
I'm going to drop this. But again, the team is so sick. Like I love Cassie Kane, Batgirl. I love Big Barda. I love. I mean, regular Batgirl. I love them all. I think it's a
Yeah.
great team.
No, it was a fun book, and I have kind of had the same sentiment as you, Blaine. Is when the art changed, both me and Nate were like, well, that's disappointing. And I can't
Yeah,
remember if it was the second arc or the third. There at one point they had an arc where they were jumping realities, and they literally shifted artists every
page
issue.
by page.
But
Oh, okay, gotcha.
but it made sense, right? Because we were jumping different realities and different scenarios. But when that initial art change happened, I was in the same boat, kind of like, I don't know if I want to keep reading this, because that was the vibe, right? It was the writing and the artwork and the coloring kind of all just came into this like perfect
Yes.
unity, and then it kind of got split. Now we're in this new arc, and it kind of feels I'm not 100% familiar with the artist, but it's been good. Like it's not anywhere near the first arc, but it's been fun
Mhm.
and consistent. That it's kind of revived that feel of like, okay, we're kind of we have this consistency here now, and it feels like the artwork matters, because there's certain times when we shift artists and it just feels like it's just a quick job, like, well, we got to get this done. We're X amount of issues in, and we have X amount more that we got to do, so just get it done. And I'm sure that's not the case. Like, that's not really the speak, right? But the perception is that's what it feels like. But Birds of Prey has had its ups and downs. Right now it's on an up, so I'm enjoying it. And
Nice.
yeah.
Hey, I'm interrupting the video. It's only because I've got something really important to tell you. I know you know what we're giving away when we hit 2,000 subscribers. I gotta let you know about what we're giving away when we hit 1,250 subscribers. We're giving away this Uncanny X-Men #1 signed by Jim Chung, CGC grade 9.8. When we hit 1,250 subscribers, you could potentially win this, but you have to be subscribed to our channel. So hit that sub button, ring that bell, and give us a like. Let's get back to the video, shall we?
All right, we're jumping over to Marvel. We're going to kick it off with, my favorite X book outside of the main two X-Men titles, and that's Psylocke, issue #7 from Alyssa Wong. Psylocke is a really fun character. She's very complex. She's had a lot done to her that has really psychologically damaged her. And I know that we've dealt with, we've explored the idea of her, her body being taken over by Betsy Braddock, and then, her fighting internally with that and then coming back, all this jazz. And now we're kind of dealing with it again, or at least Alyssa Wong is hashing it out once more. And we're dealing with that perception of that whole concept. We're dealing with a demon trying to possess her. It's just a whole can of worms. And we went down to Louisiana to meet with the Uncanny X-Men because they have a new mutant who deals with death. And she, looked for help with this from this kid, and Rogue ain't happy about it because, a couple issues back, the two teams were fighting. they were fighting over Professor X. So there's still some bad blood there. And in all of this, we've got a demon trying to possess her body. So yeah, kind of heavy of a plot. I'm digging the hell out of this book. I love Psylocke. I think she, quite honestly, doesn't deserve to be on the main X title because it's weighing her down. Her solo book is so much more, like, she is such a strong, I mean, obviously, right? She's a stronger character in her solo book than she is in the X-Men title because everyone's being juggled in that title. Whereas here, she's laser focused. She's obviously the focal point, and she's just got a strong voice. She's a cool character. Her powers are awesome. Um, I'm glad that this book isn't, or at least not yet, has not fallen prey to the chopping block over at Marvel, because I know a lot of X titles have been, because they've been poor. They haven't been as strong as some of the other titles. So this one, to me, if you have any interest in Psylocke, I'd say pick this up.
Yeah, I read #1 and I have an awesome art germ cover, and you referenced me like organizing and getting rid of my books, and I just have that one. I'm like, I'm going to keep this one. I love the cover of it so much. I mean, like, I grew up with 90s X-Men, and Psylocke is definitely like the hottest X-Men, like,
She's
as
cool.
like a young boy.
Yeah, of
And
course.
still, I mean, like, she's so awesome, and it just makes me glad to hear that she's got a book that's doing her justice, and making her like a well-rounded character. I've always just been, you find those characters, the X-Men in the wings, where they're C and D tier heroes, and you're always just like, I don't know what they're about, but something about their design, something with their vibe, something about their power set, I love, and I want to know more. So hearing that she's got a book that's popping off that's doing her justice makes me happy. So I love to hear it.
Yeah, she had a solo book in the Hickman Krakoa era. It was like Battle Angels or something. I can't remember what it was called, and it wasn't as strong. And it did deal with it. It dealt with this kind of the same thing of like her past and her child and all that jazz. But this one to me, just I think Alyssa Wong has really found Psylocke's voice, and she's just killing it. I mean, she does a great job. I think the only book that I've read from her that I'm like, was her Captain Marvel book, and that was just a complete wash. But her Deadpool and Psylocke have been phenomenal. So
Nice.
All right, next up, we've got Star Wars issue number 1.
All right, so I'll talk about this one because this is one of 2 books that I had on my pull list. And, I added this late, and it's because over at Comic Club, I have a podcast, guys. And, we usually just read a comic or graphic novel each month, but every once in a while, I'll do an interview. And I am interviewing this writer, Alex Segura. He's writing Star Wars #1. Now, I am a lapsed Star Wars fan, so much so that this wasn't even on my radar. I couldn't care less. Of course, like I love Andor, and like everybody, like I'm like, okay, Andor is legit, like dope. Like it is really good in a way that like it rekindles my love. But I have fallen so out of love with Star Wars of like I see it and people talk about it, and May the 4th just passed, and I'm just like, I do not care. I'm not going to rewatch them. I'm not trying to get my kids into it. It just something about the vibe, the aura of what is happening in Star Wars land right now, it just repels me. It just I don't want to be a part of the world. I don't want to be a part of the universe. And you see on this cover 10 years at Marvel. So Star Wars used to be at Dark Horse that for like 30 years, 50 years, I don't even know, like a long time. And they published all this canonical, stuff, Old Republic, all this stuff. And then whenever Disney bought them, then they took all the books and all the Dark Horse, all the novelizations that took place after Return of the Jedi, and just said, this is now not canon, right? They wiped the canon out. And again, I didn't care then, and I don't really care now. If you do, I'm not trying to say it's, I get it. Like there's a lot of content there. I did read some old books. But they did this #1, and it was, I believe, Jason Aaron and John Cassaday, and it was like a huge deal in comics. Like whenever this came out, I like went to the store, like got it, and it was like they had a whole like, this was like the #1 selling comic of like, whatever. Like they made a huge deal out of it, and it was great. It took place after A New Hope, before Empire, and it was kind of like telling some of these like little stories. And there was a whole era where like Kieran Gillen was writing Darth Vader. There was a lot of really cool stuff going on, and yeah. So a new Star Wars #1. This takes place after Return of the Jedi. If you picked up, there was a free comic book day issue that kind of set it up a little bit. You got Phil Noto on art. Phil Noto does the covers here as well, and he's really, really good about likenesses. And if you're gonna do, Mark Hamill and these characters we know and love, you better nail the likenesses, right? So he is really strong on that, and I'm excited to just kind of pick up a couple issues and see sort of where it takes me. But I'm not, again, one of these guys who is just chomping at the bit for any Star Wars content. But I want to give it the benefit of the doubt and see where this takes us. So that's why I added it to my list. And listen to the interview coming up on Comic Club Podcast with Alex Segura.
Having Phil Noto on the art and covers, that has me intrigued. I love Phil Noto. His artwork is just amazing. So
yeah,
I don't know. I wasn't even thinking about it, but I might have to read it just because I want to be on the same page as you when we're talking about it on Sunday. So,
and you got Return of the Jedi Luke, which is the best Luke. Like Blue Saber Luke is weak He is not strong. He sucks. Once he builds his own green saber and he walks into Jabba's palace, it's like now this is the Luke I love, and that is what I'm all about. So I like that it's taking place in like badass Luke era.
I'm wondering if there will be any tension between him and Leia after they realize that they've kissed and they are now brother and sister in this book.
Oh,
That'd be
I don't know.
interesting.
I don't know.
Ooh.
I don't know if that'll be a subplot.
All right, next up we have Storm, Earth's Mightiest Mutant, issue number 8 from Iodale. I love this book. This is another X book that just can do no wrong, even if it's getting messed around with X-Men events and the plot just gets completely lost. Iodale, another friend of the show who's been on the show, it's great. I love where he's taking the character. I love his influence, his Nigerian influence on the character, and bringing in gods that are in the mythos of that country and injecting them here and just really owning the character. He's done a great job with that. He's given her a new armor set, a freaking power set. She's cosmic now. She's doing all kinds of crazy stuff in this book. I can't remember, though, for the life of me, what happened in issue 8. All I know is that Thor is coming to play. and when Storm and Thor get together, shit gets wild. So I am looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I do remember the book getting kind of knocked off its rails with the X-Men Hunt event, and it just not making a lick of sense because that event was just horrific. Even though it's set up for something pretty cool with Hickman, it was, I'm going down a tangent. It didn't need to be executed the way it was. Leave Storm alone. Let Iodale do his thing. But I like her current battle armor. Oh my god! Don't get me started. I'm in love with it.
Storm has some of the coolest designs and costumes of the mutants, in my opinion. I think she is so sick. Obviously there's her Mohawk era, but the one that really stands out to me is whenever she was, what was it in the Krakoan era where she was the champion of Soul? Remember whenever she was like the leader of Soul, and like whatever her costume was then, I was like, oh my gosh, it was kind of like punk rocky. She might have had a Mohawk then too. I can't remember. And she's so sick. She's had a lot of really great arcs. She's the most dynamic and like most like character rich of the X-Men female cast, I suppose. And I love that she has her own book. And I've leafed through it a little bit. And I'm always super intrigued, and I love that she's like kind of cosmic and exploring the godlike powers, because I think that's a really cool aspect of her.
Iodale, when he's allowed to cook, he cooks. It's really fun. All right, next up we have Ultimate Wolverine, issue number 5. We were killing X-Men off left and right in this book, and then Shadowcat came in and did the mind wipe through the head, and now we're in this wave and weird, like, will he get put back into the Winter Soldier protocol, or will he fight back? And the last issue was kind of split down the middle. We had this metaphoric battle with a bear and a wolf, and then the dialogue was about him turning into the Winter Soldier, and it was, I felt like it wasn't executed very well. I didn't really enjoy it. But the second half of the book, where we find out that the Russians have Jean Grey, the Phoenix, in their back pocket, using her to essentially implement the Winter Soldier protocol into Wolverine. And then we also have the skeleton and brain and cerebro of Professor X connected to her. Like, just some crazy metal shit. You know what I'm saying?
That's sick. I love that.
You know what I mean? Like, just like, yeah, we're gonna do some weird shit, and you're gonna like it, and I do. So I didn't really have a lot of high hopes for Ultimate Wolverine outside of, like, it's gonna be an Ultimate book. It's probably gonna be really cool, and it's gonna lend itself to the plot. And when we get to the big picture, this character is going to kill it. Well, we're doing some radical stuff in this book. And when that hook was left in issue 4, I can't wait to see where we go here. Now, it kind of looks like we have the werewolf, or I don't know. Sabretooth, that's right. Okay, so Sabretooth in the last book was interpreted as a white bear. Again, I didn't like that. But now that we're kind of getting into this angle, again, this book is great outside of those 16 pages. If we kind of just put those over there, I'm cool. Like, this book has not done anything wrong.
Yeah, it sounds like this book, and I think I read one or two, and I mean the art is so dope. Like
Mhm.
it's a really cool book. This is one I'm going to read and collect it later. But it sounds to me what I'm gathering, it's like it is doing these X-Men cameos so well.
Mhm.
And seeing just who's the ultimate Sabretooth? Who's the ultimate Shadowcat? What is the ultimate, just drop any X-Men name you could ever want. And that's
Mhm.
what this book is doing. And I love that because you get to play with these characters that we know. You get to put a massive spin on them.
Mhm.
I am really sort of interested in this little corner of the Ultimate Universe because it's one I haven't explored. I'm not reading Ultimate X-Men. I'm not reading this. And I feel like I need to get over here so I can understand what's going on in Russia and Japan. So once the maker pops out of his little forever city or whatever it is, I know
Yep.
what's going on.
Yeah, and what a I can't believe it hasn't been done before where like the concept of the Winter Soldier wasn't infused with Wolverine quicker, right? Like, I can't believe that they just got to it now because it makes total sense. Dude's got memory
Hmm.
issues. He's a drone. You know what I mean? Like, why not meld the two? So
Yeah.
definitely looking forward to it. All right, after that, we've got a little bit of a dark horse here. We got West Coast Avengers issue number 7 from Gary Jerry. I I was like 3 issues behind because I had moved up to Colorado and I just had not kept up with it. And then I read those 3 issues and I got caught up and I was like, holy shit, West Coast Avengers is actually really good. Like, and it was one of our viewers, I believe it was John or one of our members, who was like, you need to get back on the book. So we did. Ultron is being used as this, potential has turned a new leaf. We don't quite know if it really is or not with Tony Stark and War Machine and or Rhodes, and so that whole arc just ended where Ultron feels somewhat betrayed because his protocol or whatever had been violated, and he didn't realize that Tony had a back door essentially to turn him off. And Tony lies. That's what he does. He's good at it. He lies to the Avengers all the time, and then when something horrific happens, he's there to fix it. But he had to betray somebody's trust in order to achieve that goal. Essentially, did that with Ultron. Now we're jumping into this other arc where I can't remember the name of the character that's getting choked out, but he's like Blade or electric blue electric blaze, or I can't remember. He's a new character, I think. But he ends up taking the mantle of Wonder Man, and for some reason he's like, you know what, you can start calling me Wonder Man now. Wonder Man's pissed. He ain't taking his name, so he's quite literally showing up and he's gonna chokehold this dude. He's gonna fight him. That's what this arc is right here. It's just odd. It's random. Uh, it's a hodgepodge of characters. Now, I was telling you, Blaine, before the show started, that if you're not worried about continuity or you're a little lax on continuity, then I think West Coast Avengers would be. I think you'd really enjoy it because I initially I had that same kind of like Iron Man has his own book. He's in the Avengers, and now he's on the West Coast. No, 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 that doesn't make any sense. And if you throw that out of the window, if you just don't worry about that, which is crazy for me to say because I am like the continuity king. If shit doesn't make sense, I'm gonna call it out, and it doesn't make sense because you shouldn't do that in comics. Because comics don't make sense. Um, it's a fun book. It really is the idea that they're doing here, where they've got some characters that are they're either in prison or they're trying to get their a better start with like Starfire, and then this character. It's been a fun ride, a silly goose time, if you will. So again, if you're looking for something to kind of jump onto, I would give West Coast Avengers a shot.
Yeah, I really like Jerry Dugan. I think he's a really strong writer. I liked it whenever he was doing X-Men during the Krakoan age.
Mhm.
I just he's one of these guys that is like this, almost like B tier Marvel writer that's like ready,
Yeah.
for like the next like stage of like, to get a A-list book essentially. As
Hmm.
far as West Coast Avengers, I don't know the first thing about them. I haven't read anything ever with Wonder Man in it. I know we have a TV
Yeah.
show coming up too. I don't know this dude at all, except for I think he like is he an android? Wait, because I think he's um, I think he was like mentioned or uses powers in if you've read The Vision by Tom King, he's like
Mm.
referenced in there because he's in sort of the Ultron family of Hank Pym, I believe, if I'm
Interesting.
not mistaken. Somewhere
Yeah.
he's related. If I'm wrong, call me out. Like I want to know his history. But yeah, this book is I can't grasp this team. It's ludicrous. Like Firestar, Iron Man, Spider Woman. It is. I never understood the West Coast Avengers, and I never will. And one of these days, I need to pick it up. And I think Jerry Dugan and your review right there is probably, the thing that has me interested.
I think if you're just, you're looking for some extra reading material, give it a shot. Now, I will say, like you're saying, like his ascendancy, like he's like hitting the roof to get into A. With Gary Jerry, I like to call him Gary Jerry. I feel like he takes off on his runs, like they just skyrocket, and then you're like mid arc, and it kind of, and then woo, it'll like when it goes, it goes. So
Okay.
I'm hoping that's not the case here. I think with him, I think his strongest suit is within like the 10 to 12 arc, and then like okay, time to move on, because when we stretch, that's when things start to kind of get a little loosey, just a little weird. So we'll see what happens here. But again, I've been enjoying it ever since I jumped back on. It's been fun. All right, our last book of the night. You know it. It's just a constant. We've got X-Men.
You're not allowed to mention Segment's art in this review. In your
okay, fine.
Encapsulation.
Well, is he even on the book? I don't think he's on the book. I don't see his name there.
Even better reason to not mention.
Perfect. Even though that's definitely him on the cover. Anyway, if it's an X-Men, there's an X-Men book almost every week. It's going to be on here. We've got an introduction of these new X-Men that are being established from M3 or whatever. I don't remember the name of the group that's taking over. I am intrigued with it. It has felt since X-Men Hunt that most of the X books that I am reading have felt like they've regained some kind of traction. For this book, it's felt like it's actually found itself finally since issue 1. It's taken 16 issues to get there. But it finally feels like the book has a voice, that McKay has finally settled in what he wanted to do. He introduced all these different ideas, and then this event pulled him here, and this event pulled him there, and then we were kind of just floating all over the place. And it finally does feel like the book has found its feet. We've lost some characters, presumably, and now we've got this new force that's coming in that may dethrone them. And will they make it out alive? Will we get a new set? Whatever. Like it's intriguing. It's finally hooked me to the point where I'm like, oh, cool. I'm reading an X-Men book and I'm actually enjoying it. Because we're actually diving into these concepts that McKay set up so quickly in the first arc. With Cassandra Nova and M3 and mutants, these humans turning into mutants, even though they don't have the X gene, what's causing them to do that? All that stuff is kind of finally coming together. And we're, 16 issues in. So I'm excited for it. Hopefully it doesn't let me down. And, again, I'm biting the bullet so y'all don't have to. I'm doing you a service.
It's interesting that you say all that. My take whenever I see this is like this this seems like an in-between filler couple issues until like another, maybe something big is going to happen. That's my take. And again, I don't know. I messaged you because I saw this solicit, and I know we're trying to talk about X-Men 16, but for X-Men 19, and it was like, the son of Apocalypse is coming, get ready for this new event, Revelation. And I was like, oh, now you have my attention. For some reason, I was like, this actually seems like a significant thing. Whereas I see these mutants on the cover and I'm just like, how long are these people going to last? Or do you think and this is a rhetorical question, like, will any of these mutants that look pretty sick, actually, especially the main guy, like he looks really cool. Yeah. And so much of it is based on designs, I think, is like the longevity of mutants, like how cool do you actually look and your powers are. That main dude's cool looking. Will they last? Like, is this actually a threat? Is this team, just because they do this all the time, of just like, oh, get ready for this mutant squad of the Warlocks or whatever they are. And you're like, okay, I've forgotten about them. They showed up 10 years ago in X-Men. Now they're back. Yeah. And so again, this to me looks like an in-betweener thing. I think this X-Men squad is so cool, though. I love the cast of characters that he has made here. It's such a great team. And you know, I want to be reading X-Men, but I'm just not. But maybe once X-Men number 19 comes with the Son of Apocalypse, and I'm like, who? Didn't even know that was a thing. And then I
Oh
see
yeah,
Warlock. That what is that machine guy? Is his name Warlock?
yeah, Warlock.
I'm like, okay, now I'm interested. So this one, you didn't sell me, but maybe later. I'll have to listen to the live show. On the live show,
Yeah.
we'll have to know how it is.
To answer your question though, I don't. They're probably not going to make it out the next 3 issues, if not this issue. Yeah,
Let's
it's
get Cassandra Nova in here. Why didn't she show up? She needs to be leading this squad.
I mean, she's I think 2 issues, like these past 2 issues, she's kind of like little snippets there and here and there. So like that's what I'm saying. I think McKay just hasn't, for whatever reason, has just not been given the opportunity or hasn't written the opportunity to just slow down and just tell the story he wants to tell. Whether it's
I was going to say speed up. Let's speed up.
I mean, I don't. I think he needs to slow down because like
Okay.
he ramped it up at the beginning, and then he just left it like poof, gone. It was just gone, and people were like, "What the hell?" And then there were little bits that were coming in and out of stories, but because we're dealing with Professor X saying like, "I gotta get out of here," like, what happened over there? You know what I mean? Like, I want to know more about what you were setting up, and we're finally getting that. So I get what you're saying. Like, I think it's this weird state where like we need to like do a really quick like, and then settle and just feel it. Like I know I just did like a really weird like video game move, like where you're doing a racing game and you hit the turbo burst. I think that's what I was trying to explain. So anyway, we'll see what happens. I'm gonna read it. I'm sure most people won't. And I'll take all the credit when it ends up turning good. That's all I'm going to say. All right. That's going to do it for this week's New Comic Day video for the week of May 7th. Let us know down in the comments. What are you picking up today? What are you going to read first? What's your potential pick of the week? As always, make sure to hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and give us a like. It'd be much appreciated as we're on the road to 1,250 subscribers. Felt like we've been on the road for a while, but that's okay. We're going to get there. But we're only going to get there with your support. So if you're not subbed, hit that sub button. If you know somebody that wants to get into comics or is into comics and hasn't heard about our show, you know, point them in our direction. Make sure to go check out Blaine's podcast, Comic Club podcast, and go see or listen to all the great and evergreen episodes that he has. And then he's getting ready to do that awesome interview with the Star Wars writer. So go check that out when it comes out. We'll catch you guys live this Sunday, 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, I promise. I will make sure I will do everything I can to get us live this Sunday so we can talk about all these books and more. As always, Comic Fam, be kind to one another and read more comics. Later.